So one of the struggles about being an instructor and trying to teach your students on how to draw and become better draftsmen is finding that level between incorporating uh, in your own style, in your own gesture, your own uh, versions and how you interpret things along with the rules. And so in this class, one of the things that I try to do is I try to throw rules at you, which are the governing rules of perspective. And then after that, we ignore some of those rules and we go into other areas. So the reason why I thought I'd sketch a little bit is usually this is that time of the class where people, I don't know, they start to feel like, man, I got to draw props or I got to draw something else, and they get a little bummed out by stuff. So I just thought I'd sit here and sketch a little bit and try to cover some differences. So one of the things that's important to me to talk about is whenever we draw, okay, whether we're doing additive shapes or subtractive shapes, we just talked about that, okay? What's important is that it is hard sometimes where everyone wants to set up vanishing points, they want to put all the grids down, and there's a point for that where it's taken because you have to understand what's happening in your stuff, but then there's also a time of drawing when you just sit down and you just start sketching. You know, you take a piece, you zoom into it, you come in and you just sit and you just start just sketching ideas, you know. So when you get to that, there's not, sometimes I like to just do this where I just sit and sketch, and I'm not necessarily sitting and knocking out all my vanishing points and everything. I can do that later, I can figure it out, but sometimes I need a starting point, you know. So one of the things we talked about in the class last, I can't talk right now because I'm thinking and drawing, in our last class is we talked about additive and subtractive principles of drawing and adding shapes. And what that basically means is that we can come in to a basic cube like I just had, and then we can start drawing and adding other elements to it. So if I can come in, the great thing about understanding cubes is all I really have to do is understand how to draw a couple basic shapes. Okay? And I could immediately start going into a piece, and I could start crafting out and creating something that that's never really existed before. So a lot of times when I'm sketching, okay, especially my background is designing environments and working on staging and storytelling, okay. It's not, I've done props before. To me, props are sort of boring because there's a lot more that happens with staging and stuff, but it all comes down to some of the basics. So if you've seen the way that I draw a lot, you'll notice that I put little indication lines. I always start with a horizon line in my piece, and then I'm going in and I'm just basically figuring out shapes, okay? Let's say for here I want to put something circle-based. Actually, maybe like an outward cube of some kind. Maybe I end up with this, a little bit of a tilt on here. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just sort of coming up with some rough ideas on making a bug, okay, making a creature. This is part of what your next assignment's going to be, and I just thought I would actually spend all morning drawing, doing a demo. It's a 2-hour and 20-minute demo now, but I need to compress it on drawing environments, okay, and sketching out particular themes. So what I thought I'd do is, since I was in this drawing mode, I thought I would just come right into class, turn on the projector, and then just start, okay, and start talking about a couple things and roughing out and explaining to you what you need to be thinking about when you're sketching and creating things, okay? So let's say right now I'm roughing out a bug for my own imagination. I don't know what the heck this thing is. It's part spider. It's part I'm just basically using core principle shapes, okay? Most students can get to this right here. The part that you get caught on is understanding depth relationships after you're stacking shapes and how they work with each other. For example, this is why I started doing this, is now I want to show you that if I want to draw this leg on the other side, and part of that involves drawing through the shape, this is where students really struggle. Most of you get the stacking principle, but you forget about how do I figure out the other side. And this is pretty much what you do is, you know, in basic drawing, a lot of artists and just a lot of basic methods talk about having a center line on a character or object. The reason for that center line is now I could come down here and I could drop a dotted line down, and then you see this angle here that most of my boxes are going to. I can come in here and sort of replicate that angle right here, just rough and freehand. And you see where it's hitting right here? Where it's hitting right there, I could pretty much come over. Now, I could do proportional division if I was really technical, where I could come in here and I could actually make a square, and if I receive this line back, I'm going to take my ruler here and just sort of eyeball. So if I receive this line back going in that direction, which is basically dot, dot, dot right above there, I could literally cross that square, find the middle, come through here, and if I come to this side, I could literally find the other side of where that leg is going to land. You see how I did that really quick? Okay, that's one of the benefits of drawing through your shape, because now as I come over here, I'm going to quickly realize, and by the way, I have a third leg. So let's bring the third leg out. Oops, change color by accident. Say I'm there. Let's bring it down to about here. And let's bring it to about here. Okay, so let me come back up here. These, on your drawings, it could get really busy when you're looking at all of this line work underneath, especially if you don't have different colors, right? That's why I'm trying to put this on a different layer for you to explain to you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and how I'm thinking. Okay, so when I'm drawing, I've done this so many times. When I'm doing an environment or something else, I eyeball it and measure through my shape, and I draw it on the other side. I figure it out. For some of you, you don't have that mileage yet. So to be a good draftsman, you have to do this thing where you plot points, you think about distances, and then you could come in and go, oh, wait a minute here. If Phil said that if I have a leg here, I know the other leg's going to end about right there. Look, I can even measure the point. If I come down, I'm slightly under that line. And if I come like this and go over and draw that top knee point, I know the other knee point's going to be about there. Even if I wanted to, if I want to find out the angle of that leg, I could raise that vertical line, and what I can do is do this. Bless you. I could come up here, draw a line to here, and once I found right there, if I bring this other point over and find out where that is, and I come back and draw through, it would actually tell me. You see that? It'll tell me this other knee should be ending about right here. Okay. The problem is my drawing gets all complicated, and then people get all these lines all over their pieces. Okay, like even now I accidentally drew on the wrong layer, which I don't want to, because it's this big red bold line. So let me get Command Z and go back there. Okay, trying to keep everything separate for you. And I still managed to do it by accident. There we go. Okay, so when I'm sketching, back to this drawing through the shape thing, okay, you guys have to make these light lines and figure out how to measure things to the other side. That's what makes your drawings really accurate, okay? That center line, it aids me as a measuring tool because it allows me to come back in and understand the distance from here to here, and that distance replicated would be right there. It now allows me to measure. So in terms of measuring, what did I just do? I put a vertical line going up. I found the angle of that side. I can even find the angle, oops. I could even find the angle, if I wanted to, of this other leg right here. Say it's rough about there. Then I could come back down and I can draw that through this other side right here, and it's going to give me most of the answers that I need to correctly draw part of that leg up on the other side. And I could even get much more technical on this side. People get very, very technical and draw all these lines. That's, this goes into a full rendering phase that draftsmen used to do. They teach some of that at art centers sometime. To me, it's important to know how to do it to solve a problem, but I don't do it. In essence, I know it's there. I don't get into all these lines. I like to turn off and look at my drawing because pretty soon I get all these crazy lines. Now, the thing I just did here by drawing that line vertical, that's the same principle that what many of you would do. You just did it on your last assignment. You just got to think about how you did it. A lot of you were drawing houses. You had a simple house shape like this, and you wanted to put a roof on that house. So what do? You find the middle, and you just draw a line up, and wherever you end it, it's going to be the angle of your house. And then you draw a line back down, right? After that's done, you would then receive that line back to the vanishing point where these are going. You come back in, and you pretty much match that line Technically, it's going to another vanishing point that's way off the page, but since we don't have a lot of convergence happening, you could come in here and you could pretty much match it pretty close to being parallel, like that. For now, that's just fine. So all I did right here was that same thing. You see this is the top of the house? All I did was come up and find these angles in here that represented the top of the house. But the only difference is that now I'm measuring through part of my bug shape to find that, okay? So one of the next things, you guys are supposed to draw props, okay? 5 and 5, basic props, 1 point and then 2 point to get an idea of start thinking about subtractive and additive shapes, okay? So if I'm gonna come in there, if I was sketching this, let's say in my sketchbook, I would probably come in here and I would just throw down a rough line. I automatically, when I draw, I tend to do this thing. I tell my students it's the upside down T. And what it is it's this little mark right here, it's that T. And the reason why I do that is that it gives me an understanding that if I draw a line sort of going back this way, and I come back here, I know exactly the height of my bug now above the ground. That's really key for me to understand that, okay? Then if I come back over here and I do that quick measurement, let's just say I eyeball it, and if I come back over here and I recede a line going this way, I know that that middle line goes dot, dot, dot up here. I come up to there, I follow that angle, I come back through. Okay, so I know about right here, I'm going to have another angle that's sort of coming all the way down to the base here. Now, if I want to, we talked about transferring height and scale already in this class. So if I want to know exactly where this leg piece right here is going to meet on the other side, all I have to do is come over and just transfer that height like that going across. Make sure that my ground line is straight there. And then I know, hey, this is where the start of that sphere is going to be. This is going to be sort of foreshortened, but that's going to be the base. This leg's going to come up. I might see a little bit of the knuckle joint here. And then the rest of it would attach into the side. Now that's the scary part. You're like, oh my God, how does it go into the side? Well, again, look, this is all you have to do, is that if you measure, and if I were to take my line right here and go right through the middle right there, right? Come to the other side of my box, go right up, and then go over. See that I just cut it like with a butter knife? Right here on the other side is that other shape right there. See that? So if I drew through my shape, that leg is actually going to connect like that. And now when you see it, does it not make sense? It totally works, right? So right there is a really, really important part of drawing that 90% of all students skip. And there's a reason why they skip it. It's because everyone's too freaking lazy. Well, there's two reasons. One is that during like the transition from the 50s to the 60s and the 70s, when you had this huge movement of fine art, contemporary art, and everything, one of the things that did happen is a lot of people lost the old methods and training of draftsmanship. And those particular rules fell to the architects, and they fell to these people that I remember, because when I was in the mid 70s, I was like 8 years old. I took a class in drafting, and we had a T-square. You know what a T-square is? It goes along the side. We had to sharpen our pencil. Then we had a special sharpener. You'd spin it around so it got a super duper fine point on it, and you would draw everything with a 90 degree and all this. And that was architecture. That's the way people did things before they had CAT. Okay, so if we're asked to draw something, okay, I'm not going to go in there. What did I do? Hold on. I'm not going to go in there every time and I accidentally deleted a layer somehow. Let me go back. There it is. I'm not going to go in there and do all of this stuff right here. Okay? I'm not going to do it because I've already done it and I know how to figure stuff out. Okay? I can figure it out very lightly and I can draw through. So I know that leg's in the right place. So the same thing happens now if I come over here and I go to the back leg. So if I want to figure this leg out, I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to drop a line down, come over to the other side. I'm going to come up. I'm going to actuate where that hole is on the other side. Okay? And then I could even, if I wanted to, I could even find this angle that's going right through here, like a house. I know that's the middle. So I know going through the other side, you see how I did that? That's going to be the angle of that leg coming through the other side. And then I could come over here, just slightly draw from this base. Let me see, do it in red so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just freehanding it. I come over, boom. I know that leg is going to end about right there, right? And then if I come over and I do the same thing, look, these two are lining up. So I know if I draw a little line this way, I know the other leg is going to land about there. And you see, look, I already have the distance right there between the legs. Now, I'm a little off where this is ending because look at the angle there and look at how straight that is. So there is a way to figure that out really quick. And again, another measurement method that I just sort of showed you, which is, look, if I find the center line of my bug, which I already had right here, was in that original shape that I had, right? There's my center line right there. So if I come over and I take this leg and I drop it, I go across, I hit and I come up right here. That is the midsection of where this leg exists, right? So if I draw a dotted line up like this, and you can see that angle right in here of the leg. Now, I might go off the page drawing that angle up, right? So I could just stop it like this. And I could just say that's about, I'm going to eyeball it, that's about 2 inches. And that feels about right there. About right there. And then I'm going to come back down here and draw that angle down into here. So now I can see that this leg that ends here should be over a little bit more about there. Does that make sense? That's how I figured that out. I just draw that sort of plus, okay? So the problem is, whenever I do one of these bug demos, is I end up with I mean, look at this. You end up with that. And it's all this craziness all over the place, okay? And I don't want you're looking at that and you're going to get confused, okay? So the best thing to do is sort of, everyone tends to want to draw a complicated bug. And sometimes I come to that and I go, well, before you do that, just look at it and talk to yourself and figure out, like everything that I'm doing right now. We understand that if I just freehand this and come up, I draw a line here, I come to this side, I come down at an angle. There, I brought my line down, come over here. I know the leg is going to be about there. I know it's going to come through about here, okay? And then I know it's going to come down to about, if I draw a little box here, I come over this way. There, I know my leg's going to end about there. And right there is going to be about the cone. That'll be the circle. And you can see how I drew through the shape to pretty much like figure and establish that really quickly, right? That's what drawing through the shape is. A lot of times I don't have time. If I'm doing figure drawing or drawing someone in a cafe, I don't have time to go, oh, excuse me, Anaya, don't move. Hold on. I need to draw through and draw a box to the other side. Wait, give me my horizon line, my vanishing point, and draw a box and a house top and figure out. I don't have time to do all that stuff. So what's really important is that you start to learn to draw and measure this way. So let's do this other leg now. I can intersect this box here, so I know it's going to land before it. So I know on this side that's about there. If I come back over here, draw that line across, I'm not going to see that leg, am I? Because it's hidden by the shape. Okay, exactly. So now, I know this looks ugly, but I basically have a basic box and shape that then I can tone down. And then I can come back on top of that, and what can I do now? And now I can add in my little details. I can come in with a nice black line if I want, and I could start saying like, okay, maybe this part of the head has like a split in it. It comes down here. This part comes up, and he's got this funky looking eye, and it has detail that wraps around it. This part comes down, maybe, and then coming off of here, he has these pinchers that come forward like this. So then I could come back, draw over to the other side, figure out I'm going to see the pinchers there. I'm going to see the pinchers come out a little bit there. So do you see what I'm doing now? Now I'm coming into my shape, and I'm putting the details that exist inside the shape. But the great thing is I'm using this to guide me through. Does that make sense? So now that I have that light sketch here, I can quickly come in and just add the little details. So the little details are, maybe this rounds out a little like so. Maybe it's like a protective. A lot of bugs have natural protective skin, what do you call them, infrastructures or exoskeletons. Okay, thank you. I'm trying to I'm lecture, drawing, thinking of a word at the same time, right? So maybe there's like part of an exoskeleton that comes this way, it wraps here. Maybe that exoskeleton comes back here. Maybe part of this folds itself over like that. And then maybe this is just like bug gump. I don't know, some type of bug skin that comes up with this. Do you see that? Okay. So maybe that's part of exoskeleton. It comes here, and now I can see some of that on the other side. That wraps around a little like that. So I could just keep coming onto this, and this is where if I had reference, I'm drawing this out of my head right now in the middle of class, I could just keep adding on to it. So the legs, maybe where the legs come in here, there's like a little bit of like a joint of some kind that's loose, that's pretty common, like a fold of skin. And then maybe this exoskeleton comes up. Maybe there's like a a circle design, like how black widows have a marking. So maybe that exoskeleton does something like this. Maybe it comes down. Maybe part of it goes up a little higher, and then it comes down here and it wraps over part of that. Okay? And then again, maybe this is at like some type of skin mesh that's folding over. Okay, so you can see very quickly, I don't have the reference, but I'm drawing on top of my shapes now. Okay, so and everything that I continue to do is just figuring out, maybe this looks like a kneecap, and the kneecap, maybe it has like a joint that comes over it, maybe there's a little thing here, and then maybe sometimes on bugs they have these weird like exoskeleton little details that they almost look like tree bark when you look at them. So sometimes spiders are like that. So maybe I do that. And also some spiders and arachnids have like little hair and little dimples and stuff, and it's not all smooth. So I could put some of that little surface texture in. I might put some hair in here. And you can see where I'm going. If I spend another 15 minutes, maybe I bring this more to a point like this. Okay, if I spend another 15 minutes in there, you can see how I'd have my bug, right? So I didn't want to just overkill this in a render and just render the whole bug out, but I want to show you how I got to there and how I got to there. And what sort of sparked this is this morning I was sitting around drawing my Amazon sketches for my intermediate digital paint class, and I was sitting there sketching, and I'm like, man, I need to just share this information because this is all, it's the same principle. And it's like Mike Sheehan and I had a great conversation last Friday. We were talking about, it's all the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's bugs, doesn't matter if it's props, robots, characters, the human figure, it's all shape. So when I'm drawing a tree in my environment, the first thing I know in the back of my head is what? I know exactly where that horizon line is. So then I come in here, I'm drawing like this huge Amazon forest. I throw a gesture line in like that, okay? And basically the first thing that I start to do is this. Boom. And within like maybe 3 to 4 lines, right there, I have the basics of my shape. Okay, so it doesn't look like much, but it's the years of drawing. So what did Phil just put down there? This is what I put down there if I go over it in red. I put down that that's a cone shape. That is the center line of that cone shape. This is how it connects. Right here on the side of this body is going to be another cone shape that comes out here, and it's going to be part of a giant root system. And that root system is going to come over, and it's going to flop downward like this. See that? So that's what's in the back of my head. I've just done it enough where I don't have to do that. I can do this. But what's cool about years and years of drawing is that then I could come in here, and I just got to find the right layer. I'm like, where'd I go? It's not that. It's a viewable. Is it this one? Yeah. So then I could come in here really efficiently, and this is where I just sort of, this is where I elaborate a little bit. Sometimes I make, looking at tree reference and doing lots of little studies, I notice that trees have these like little bumps in them. Sometimes the end of a tree actually feels like an elbow or a kneecap sort of coming down. I might put a couple contour lines in this, and then I might decide to branch this one off, bring another little leg. So what I'm doing now is additive. I'm pulling out cones and other shapes, okay? So I might bring that out, and then this might come out then a little bit more. And as this comes out, this one might split. I want to know exactly where it ends. I draw a little center line. I figure out where that ends. I put a little bit of moss on top of the tree, put some little corners, maybe a dot or two, and then boom, I figure out where that tree ends. And then that might be sort of like, another thing too is knuckles. Trees, some of their branches and their leggings feel like knuckles popping out of like a figure. So that comes out, then this way, this one might come out, and now I'm looking here. That one's going to recede this way and drop downward. So I'm going to erase this line that I have, and then I'm going to be able to bring that tree and then think of that tree existing now in that type of shape. Okay, so that's another branch structure. So as I bring up the rest of that branch and then carry over the tree, okay, which I know looks like some gnarly old dude's hand right now coming out of the side, but that's, and then this is how so maybe this part of the tree flares out a little bit more, then comes in. There's like a line in it. Trees have some natural folding lines sometimes, Maybe this comes out and pulls out more like this, then tucks in. So now it feels a lot more set up like a real tree. See how I did that? Quickly adding on that contour line. And then from this point forward, everything that I do on my tree I'm going back to the same principle where I'm thinking about my horizon line in relationship to that drawing. So if I splice this tree, and one great way I can add more shape to that tree is if I wrap it with a vine. But if I wrap that with a vine like this, maybe the vine hangs over a little bit. Do you see I'm wrapping it in this direction, which is relative to the horizon line, versus if I go above the horizon line and I wrap a vine coming over my tree, I'm going to wrap my vine like this now. Why? Because of my principles of ellipsis that we talked about. Then maybe I come in here, I detail my vine. Maybe my vine branches off and goes a little bit this way and connects back to this guy. And then maybe the other, I don't know, maybe it comes out here. Nature, this is a great thing about just going and drawing cool shapes. I mean, there's all these great parks that have these big, beautiful trees. One of the things I love to do in my sketchbook, I just go draw a couple. There's one right outside this door to the right. It has this huge root system. It's beautiful to draw. It's insane to look at how the roots are coming down, right? So the one thing I was going to say is nature has this tendency of like spinning off stuff, and then nature just sort of says, screw you, I'm going to do what I want, you can't stop me, and it'll just throw like a vine coming out of some weird direction, you know? And then I might come onto this after I have vines, I'm going to put some plants. So when I put a plant on and I attach something here, I'm thinking, hey, that plant leaf is above what? It's above my horizon line, so I can see underneath it. And then maybe I have another leaf here, maybe another one here, maybe one overlapping this one. I come in, I draw the leaves connecting back to basics or whatever, and then I figure out, you know, if that's a pointed leaf, does it have a round edge, whatever. And the same thing comes down here. If I wrap a vine over something, I come back. Now I'm under my horizon line, so I have that quarter shape in there, okay? And even if I didn't, even if I had something that folds over, maybe a lot of leaves come up and they do this. They go upward like that, like a ribbon, and then what does a leaf do? It folds down like this. So if I draw through the shape, that's my shape right there. That's the key shape, but I don't do that, do I? Because what I do real quick is this. I come in and I go like that, and I just touch, knowing that's my middle point, and then I know this end connects to there, that end's going to connect to about right there, and that's that middle point drawn through my leaf. So now I could come back in here, and I could quickly just go, bloop, and I could add more leaves in here, as long as I'm getting these lines to connect up. There might even be one that sort of comes off there. There might be one that comes off this side and is lightly curling. I might have one that's behind here, so it comes up this way behind that guy, and then goes this way. Uh-oh, danger zone. It's going above the horizon line, so as it goes above, now I can see underneath it a little bit more, and it drops down like that. See that? So I'm thinking about all that when I'm drawing. It's all about shape. It's all about the foundation of this drawing that I just did. I just showed it to you. It's this. It's a squashed cone, which we could call it a trapezoidal cone, I guess, but it doesn't really make sense. And then I put an insertion there, and I brought something off to the side. Okay? So what I wanted to do is, before I dive into stuff today, I just didn't want to, I wanted to have it make sense a little bit. And since I happen to be drawing all this morning, working on this demo for my other class, I thought, why not incorporate part of this? Because you can see where I'm at with my bug right now, right? I have maybe 5 minutes on this, okay? So let me give you another example, right? Which, by the way, this right here is how I draw houses in all my environments. I start with big blocky shapes and cube shapes. I attach on cube shapes. And one of the things that I always do, that I just gave you guys as a golden hint on the last assignment, is how many shapes are in a factory? 6 to 8 at a minimum. And then how many in a house? 2 to 3. So if I'm drawing a castle, or I'm being asked to draw some type of attack mech, in the back of my mind, the first thing I do is I break everything down into its group of shapes and how many shapes would be inside every drawing. Okay? So before let's say I would go into that and finish it, I thought I'd just mention a character because I love drawing characters, right? So if I come in, when I'm drawing and sketching a character as well, which you guys have probably already seen this, one of the first things I'm doing, like when I'm drawing a turtle, is I'm starting with that sphere, and then the first thing in character design that animators do and artists is you come in there and you're like, boom, and you throw down, and I know there's really fancy terms for throwing in these lines. There's like, you know, the misogynical plane, this plane, that. They get really analytical. I just call it, because I think of Maya and I work in Maya, is my X and Y axes, and I think of one as a minor and a major, because this allows me to then think about, hey, if this is the center line of the face, and if I have what would be a beak right here, and if I'm drawing a bird, that beak is going to come out and then drop down like this, and I'm going to see slightly underneath that beak because it's going up above me, right? And then the lower part of the mouth now of the character is going to come like this, and maybe it's, he's got this, maybe he's saying something, so maybe the character's mouth sways out a little bit more like so. So you see how I did that? In the back of my mind, what's happening in my drawing is this. That's what's going on in my little clicker. You might not see that from Mike and I because, and Marshall, because we've been doing this for quite a long time, right? So then I come on and I start to address the other features in part of my character. So if I'm up here, I come over here and I think about, hey, let me get the same color. I think like, hey, maybe this is his eye, right in here. Okay, that's my little guy's eye. And so now I see where his, I don't know how I changed colors, but I have a multicolored bird now. Let's go back here. Then I come over and see, understanding where this is in the back of my head, I now look at this sphere and I realize the other eye is right there. Do you see it? Now I know where the other eye is. So if I go to draw the other eye, and let's say for some reason on my character, he's got an eyelid, and let's say it's female. I just noticed the other day that I was looking at Tom and Jerry character design, and Jerry always had eyelashes. Yeah. And I'm like, but you put eyelashes on girls, not on, anyway. So I'm like, Jerry's like the masculine character, but he's got the eyelashes. So once I get that eye up there, then I could come here and I know, hey, I'm going to see a little bit of a lip right there for the other eye. And then I might even see these angles coming back from the other direction because it's the other side. And then I can play up little attributes that my character might have. Maybe my character has feathers, so I know where that center line is. So I come in here, I throw a feather there. I throw maybe another feather here, I throw one there. Okay, now it sort of matches up how part of that character is connecting together. Does that make sense? And the same thing, I come back in here and I realize like, hey, that's the back of the mouth. That's going to be sort of a tongue. And then this is part of that. And I'm just doing this really quick to explain. It's the same process. It doesn't matter. Okay? So let's just take that. Let's delete that guy. So let's say, and we're going to get to this part next, would be our human figure. So whenever I'm drawing the human figure, especially this is a benefit of going out to coffee house or trying to grab somebody real quick in a drawing. One of the first things that I'm looking for is I start with the head ball and I look for this sort of line of action to figure out what they're doing, let's say, like that. So I see where the head is in relationship to that line of action, and that line of action is actually my what? That's right. And we talked about center lines in here. With that center line, I can build anything off of it. Okay? So once I have that line of action, I can throw a counter line going this way, which now establishes the placement of the shoulders, right? And then I can come back here, find what's happening with the waist, and then I just break everything down into shape. So I do that. I come back here, and if you look at how the hips sort of come in your gluteus maximus, your butt, they're like these big pads, right? So even with jeans on, your leg is still coming through this way. So do you see right now? I don't have a model in front of me, do I? But all I'm doing is drawing the core shapes that represent that particular individual. So if this person is sitting here and their arms going down on their knee, and I'm going to watch out, danger zone. I'm going to foreshorten under the horizon line, right? So there's foreshortened, right? So there's their arm, and maybe they're holding a paper. So I come over here, I draw my hand, okay, and maybe right here they're reading an old style comic book or newspaper or something like that, okay? So maybe as they're sitting there, I need to get the other leg in. So maybe this, part of this leg comes through here, it foreshortens a little bit, and then we see, maybe a little bit of the foot is coming out of there somehow, okay? So then I have the other side. I can't see where that other leg is going, but I'm doing the same thing in the back of my mind, right, folks? I'm coming back to this, and that's a construction. So I know if this leg is coming off of here, and I draw through the other side, maybe this leg is right here, but it's going the opposite way, okay? Let me undo a couple times. So I come back, and maybe that leg is coming back. Don't ask me why they'd be sitting like this, but maybe that leg is coming in like this, and it's sort of connecting. And then maybe this leg is just being foreshortened, and then their foot's up, sort of like this. Okay? And then maybe his hand's up, raising, hey, Jimmy, I'm over here with my comic. So I come over here, and I throw that arm in there. I put in the elbow mark, and then I start to throw in that hand. And I sketch in that base shape for the hand. See that? But I don't have a model, do I? So everything back to this, because I remember last time I taught this class, is I had somebody get a little nasty with me and say, I'm never going to draw bugs. I'm an artist, and I have no interest in drawing bugs. Okay, well, you think of it, yeah. Follow you out to the parking lot, and I can't even select that. Select this guy, let's just delete him. We'll get to that next section. So, Matt, I could go back on this and spend 10 more minutes, but this is what I want you guys to do. This is the next courses section for you, okay? So speaking of this, really quick, before you go, if you come over and check out our blog, I'm going to come around and look at some of your props today. I just thought I'd get the lecture going now and get it rendered. So look, here's your homework for over the weekend. And I used to have it 5. I switched it to 3. So you don't have to feel, because it's really 4 drawings. I want you to draw 3, and then I want you to try to draw a character from another angle. Okay? So Feng Zhu and a bunch of other guys from Art Center, they teach this stuff in their class and they talk about it. You can see how my drawing is going to go into that direction, right? Once I finish all these points. And again, you'll look at the lines. See the lines going underneath? See the upside down? It's not an upside down T. It's just a line registration adhering to where the ground is, indicating points of where things would be. So what I want you to do is lightly sketch in your horizon line and then sort of ignore it. But then just draw. I don't want you to have to create the whole bug with a ruler. If you're doing that, there's a problem. It's too tight. You just put the horizon line and then you're asking yourself questions. You can look at this sketch and you know it's under the horizon line because we can see on top of the bug. Okay, so I put all this reference up here for you, so it's already there. And look, these are what other students and other people are doing, is that they are going out and drawing insects and bugs. And there's a reason. Why would you draw insects and bugs? I can tell you why. Number one, they're very creative and they have lots of curves and different cool shapes inside them. Number two, they're easy to get reference on. Okay, and number three is that not only is there abundance of reference, but they don't really move. You see them in one still position, and it's something we don't really see much of. So when we draw them larger, they're very interesting and attractive. Look at that. That's just core shapes. See that? Just a variety of different shapes. That's big blocky shapes. Okay? You could get to a point where you're doing this very technical stuff. I don't think you need to be like that because, I have to be honest to the way that I learned how to draw and the way I draw in the industry, and that is that I don't get that technical with things. I know it's there and I draw through it and I figure it out. Okay, so there's a bunch of reference there for you. Look at that. That's back to props. That's a more advanced prop. It's the same principle. It's just a bunch of boxes stacked on other boxes. Okay, there's a train, locomotive. All right. Those of you guys in Mike's class, where have you gone out to draw lately? March Air Museum, great. Get to draw the planes. Mike's talking about the same thing, right? Yeah. Structure, bringing in parts together. And then he's probably then sharing with you another little trick about your line weight. Like having lines dark, having darks against open areas, darks against whites, creates contrast, makes you visually look at something.
Really focusing on having us punching the lines to give line weight.
Exactly. And you want to do that in maybe one or two places, but not all over, or else you flatten and kill the drawing, right? So Mike's talking about all that stuff that's really important stuff. What I put on here, the reason why this is important, folks, is that if you can nail this, and you can draw these guys, next, this leads to the ability to do this, to draw props. And when you learn to draw props, successful, look at that, Africa, right? It's pretty cool. Then you come up with your own ideas and concepts for your own stories, right? And then that leads to that, which is my role, which is environments. And then you start getting into environments, and then you start to become a storyteller, okay? So imagine where you could be if you dedicate yourself to a year of drawing and learn all the stuff about shapes and using perspective and building up your worlds, you end up in this level where now you get to be a storytelling. And I got to tell you, this is a wonderful place to be, because this leads to children's book illustration. This leads into you developing your own properties. This leads into higher paying positions inside the animation industry because you're doing environments. This leads to staging characters in your worlds, which are now basically storyboarding and telling a narrative. Okay, this is that stepping stone that takes you, and then this right here, linear composition, being able to draw and put tone in and then light it correctly, then leads you to the final effects of concept art. Being able to create concept art, understand value, light, and then work in color and so on. That's it. That's part of the whole pathway. That's the series. I talked about this. I have another YouTube video I've been working on at home, but I keep getting distracted on it. I talk about like 7 core, sometimes even 8 core bubbles. That, you know, one of them, the first bubble is the bubble of draftsmanship. After that, there's another bubble of design. There's another bubble on composition. There's one on light, value, and rendering. There's one on color. All of these bubbles come back together, and sometimes you even start back and repeat. This is how you go through an education process and how you get better. One of my students had this right here. She had a bunch of metal bugs, and she brought them in upstairs, and I took my phone out and just took pictures of it at different angles. Because it's really simple, very fun. Apparently, this is a huge collectible thing where people like to have, you know. So seeing that from different angles, you know, you can take one of those and sketch. So here's my thing that I want to tell you about. If you're really struggling with the perspective, what I want you to do is take one of these guys and trace over it. And do one as a trace over. And it would actually be better if you did one of the blockier shapes like this. Do that. Do the blocky shapes like that first. Then once you nail down the blocky shape, okay, the next one you do yourself. The third one you do yourself, okay? I want you to make an attempt at trying to do a reverse view if you can. At the next class, I'll talk a little bit more about reverse views and how we pull off a reverse view in drawing. A lot of it has to do with measuring, okay? So, in fact, I could go over it now. Do you want me to go over it now?
Yes.
Real quick while it's on here? Okay. This is what you do on a reverse view, all right? It's actually this simple. I'm going to do it really rough on top of this guy here. If I wanted to draw this guy from a reverse view, what I need to do is I need to take a series of measurements and figure out what's happening here. So for example, if I come up here with a line, that's the front of my guy, right? I have a tail there that I haven't drawn in yet, but there. There's my core box shape right there, right? Okay. Oh, my pen's so huge. There. Okay. So once I get that in, and you get this sort of measured in, and here, find. To me, that's about the middle. Remember my box, actually about there. So if I were to bring that forward and say my box is right about there. So if I were to cross this, divide it, go through it, that feels about right for the backside. You see that? And let's say there's about, oops, a little bit of slippage there. I'm just going to go ahead and make this a little bit more isometric and say about there. Okay. What you do is you break down measurements of your guy. Okay. So, and it's easier to do this from a side view first, but this will make sense. Okay. Right now, I have, if I draw this character information from a side view, I have about that shape right here, right? I have, and this is where you got to come in here, see this line where that shell starts? It hits about there, okay? Let me draw a line going this way, bring that back, that hits about there, and draw through my shape, okay? So what I have is, see this angle right here? This angle is topping out of my bug about there. I just rough it in, okay? Like so. Okay, then my head comes up and it goes above that. So the head's going to be about here. My head now comes up to about here and goes above my shape. See that? Okay, so I just do all these little measurements. My belly is pretty flat across, and there's one leg, another leg, and another leg. Okay, so now what you do is you take this measurement and you take these little notations, you know, understanding that the legs are from here to here about, and you just draw that in a reverse view. You start with the cube first. So if I take a look at this, and if I start to draw my bug in a reverse view, I'm going to come like this. I'm going to sketch in that sphere. I'm too busy lecturing. I'm thinking in my brain, I'm not talking right. I'm going to lecture, I'm going to put in that cube like that. I'm going to throw in a rough center line, going down like so, okay? And then I'm going to come up here, and I know that that head's going to start about here. I know the head's going to come upwards about like this. It's going to come down, connect back in here. I might even need to add a little bit more to it, okay? I know that angle, when I looked at that angle that's here, so I have a top part that starts here, and now I'm looking at my drawing on the left. I know that that is going to sort of curve downward, and it drops about this much. Do you see that? It's about 1/4 of an inch. So I come back down here, I get about that 1/4 of an inch mark. So I know there's my center line. So if that's my center line, I come to the back here. So I realize that that shell is going to drop and be about there. See how I'm doing it real quick? I'm just sort of carrying over the measurements. I know I have 1 foot right on the front line. So I come here. So I know I'm going to have 1 foot. It's going to be about here to here. Let me get the midsection in, about there, let's say. So, and then the same thing, 1, 2, 3. So now, do you see how it's piecing together very quickly? And then look at my land point of my second leg. Where is it in relationship to this line?
45.
It's pretty close though, the distance from here to here. See that? It's about 1/3 or 1/4, so it's going to be about here. My other leg is where? Is it all the way in the back? No, it's still, my other leg's landing about there. So now that I have this, I can almost draw a line roughly over, find out where my midsection is, come up here, and boom, now I can realize, hey, there's another leg. It's going to come up about here. It's going to be about there, like that. Okay? And then I come back to the other side, do the same thing. This one, I didn't even look at the height of my circles. Right now, they're all about even. So I need to make sure these are about even. I look at the other leg. It doesn't go up as high. It almost goes straight out. So this one's going to come sort of straight out, and it's going to land probably about there. And I could even, if I wanted to, I can measure that. See, if I come over here on that center line of that box, where it's hitting the side of the knee, and I go dot, 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 dot. See that? Then I could even come down in here and measure down to about there and see where that leg is. So I'm almost about 1 inch over. You see that? So I come back over to this drawing. I measure about 1 inch over. And then I could see that other leg is going to probably come out. It's going to be about there. It's going to come down a little bit more to about here and then maybe hit about there or so. It's a little bit different of an angle than the other legs are. Okay? That's how I start to block out my reverse view, is I take these measurements here, measurement A, measurement B. I figure out the angles. Heck, you can get so technical with this that you could even come in here and find a point, like right there, and you could say, that point is exactly at the 1/3 mark here, and that point is exactly at the 1/3 mark here. From that point, we go out at an angle of 30 degrees, and that's the angle of the head. So you could come back over to here, and if you were to come back to about 1/3, you go back, you come back, drop down to about another 1/3, you could see where the start point would be, and then you could even measure and get that 45 in there. You could find the angle in there, see what I'm talking about? You could get that analytical with it. I don't think you need to, unless some of you are planning to become is it etymology specialist? No.
Entomologist.
Thank you. That one. I said the one I said was study of cultures. What is it again? Entomologist, which is very similar to etymology, but it's a little bit different. Anyway, so you get the point, right? Enough of that. That's pretty much how we turn that. So I want you to try it. I'm not expecting perfection. Just have fun and draw. You will. And here's the really cool thing: is if you're doing this and you are having fun with it, okay, you're going to start to realize that you could draw like a little beast guy, and you could come back over here, and you might have like a little dude up here with a staff, Donald Trump coming through the. I'm just kidding. You could have like a little dude up here, maybe he's got like, you could see it just becomes fun all of a sudden when you change up scale, or even when you're sketching something and you come down here. This is the great thing about bugs is bugs become mechs. And you could be like, okay, he's that big. and that's my new mech that's going to exist. It's going to fight against the necromancers, right? So, right, and then the necromancers will have to battle. And you take that guy's height. Anyway, just have fun with it. But you can see how I got there, right? It's all that, folks. Rough shapes. And the reason I wanted to redo this demo is because I looked at the old demo I had that was up there and it sucked. And I hated it. I was drawing from a wrong angle and I was doing too much line stuff. And, even as a teacher, I look back and sometimes I have a demo up and I hate it. I want to redo it. And to me, this speaks a lot more about construction and shape and understanding, and especially understanding this right here. Remember, this is the golden one. Oops. You have to understand that. Drawing through from here to there. That's really key. That's what everybody passes and doesn't do. So if you know that, that means that's the one thing you have to do to become better at drawing. You have to always draw through and figure out how shapes and lines are interacting on the other sides, okay? All right, have fun, keep on drawing. Pardon me, I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna go render out my bug and then I'll put it in at the very end because I was having fun with them, okay? So here's my finished bug real quick. I just went over it just with a bunch of linear lines, really fast, threw a couple things together, and it's not more than just cleaning up and thinking about thick and thin line, wrapping lines with contour, getting the shapes to read, and you could see how easy it sort of becomes. You could start making your own creatures, your bugs, whatever you want, even undersea creatures, you name it. All you got to do is you have to come back and you just have to have the right shapes. And if your shapes exist right, you guys saw me do that. It didn't take me that much time. So imagine if I wanted to make like a whole realm of creatures, I could just start sketching a bunch of different shapes and go in there and you just start drawing on top of it. So some of you that are doing this traditionally, it would be in your best interest to have like a light blue pencil like that, sketch, then come over your light blue pencil with either just a pen or a Prismacolor or even a pencil. That's why light blues are so great. You can see all your lines, but then when you go over it, you don't see any of the construction that's there. Anyway, thanks guys. Take care.